very interesting. But can you explain the role of the Western powers in this coup d'état which took place in Kiev?
The Western powers was always thinking about the destabilization of Russia. So the strategist of United States external policy, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was pronouncing the formula which can explain all the behavior of the West on the Ukrainian territory. That was the formula according to which Russia with Ukraine is the empire, but without Ukraine, Russia will not exist. So this is the logic of classical geopolitics Anglo-Saxon world, and the Western aim was to split Russia and Ukraine, to make a confrontation between two countries, which are countries like a family. Russians, Ukrainians is a part of a big Slavic family, and the West was starting to support all the initiatives which had this nationalist view. But this nationalism which they were supporting was not the nationalism as itself, not the idea of defending the Ukrainian nation, but the idea of defending Ukrainian nation when it's looking to the West, when it's accepting the values of the West. So this Ukrainian nationalism is not a nationalism in a true sense. It is a nationalism which has a very pervert form, very vulgar form. So it's not a classical nationalism. This is a nationalism with LGBT, with the support of the West, with the anti-traditional values, and this is a hybrid. So this hybrid was created by the West, by the soft power which were implemented in the region, and during 8 years of the post-coup d'etat period, it changed the minds of simple Ukrainians as well. So it influenced a lot, because the West was proposing not only the ideology of anti-Russian, of Russophobia, but they were also implementing the codes, how to make this Russophobia to be legitimated. So they used the forces which were historically a bit skeptical towards Russia, like the Western Ukrainian side, and they were developing the points in history like Dmitro Dontsov into integral nationalism, which were against Russians. They were supporting different forms of racism, which, for example, was seeing Russians as Turanians, as Mongols, and speaking about the Ukrainians at the same time as the superior race. So this was the Western task. The West was helping not only with ideology, also with the technology, especially if we speak about the soft power, about the information warfare. And now we see that the West is also supporting Ukraine with arms. So they came from the soft power to the hard power support.
Darya, you talk about the neoconservatives in Washington. They are mainly in the Democratic Party and so on. So if we try to make a definition of those Western powers, and we know that USA is number one in that, well, maybe it's on the role of the European Union, and well, is it connected with the crisis of capitalism? Is this neo-imperialism? If we try to define it, how would you define
I think that the strategy of the West was the agony of the globalism. So the West is losing its power because of the weakness of this ideology. Neoconservatives see the world as a place where they can install their order, the new world order based on the globalist values, on the liberalism, on the capitalism. But the problem is that civilizations not agree with this law of the universalism, and they're rejecting it. Ukrainians were also rejecting that, and there were different groups. What is very interesting in Ukrainian nationalists, there were different groups which were also anti-Western. But West and neoconservatives need a special arm in order to destroy all the alternative versions, and they were taking only that kind of Ukrainian nationalism and fascism which suited the neoconservative agenda. So for neoconservatives, the world must be with one pole, the pole of United States. They even use the Plato's narrative of Republic, where Plato's in his dialogue Republic says that there is only one truth and one good, and when you speak with people who is not who is in cave and who doesn't know the real cavern, or who doesn't know the real senses, then you can lie. So there's the idea of the noble lie. It means that now conservatives has an hierarchy. They see themselves as elite, American elites, which know the truth, which know the good in the philosophical sense, and which has a total right to implement these ideas to the other world without any apology, without any argumentation. So that's exactly what they are doing to the whole world. And we see now how, for example, the Middle East had rejected these values. Syria resisted. We see how Libya, after even being destroyed totally, still resists to this American way of understanding the world. We see how the Africa now makes anti-imperialist movements towards the multipolarity, and we see now that this Ukraine is the last point of battle of globalism and anti-globalist. So if we go back to the Ukrainian field, this is not a battle between Ukrainians and Russians. This is the battle between two ideologies: neoconservative globalism, VS, versus multipolarity and anti-globalism.
What is the role of China? How would you define the role of Mr. Xi Jinping, of China, and the role of it? Is it supporting Russia fully? Was Russia disappointed with waiting maybe more support? Because China is, of course, number one as to the future, as to economy, and so on, and the military power, and maybe the Taiwanese factor.
China is a part of the multipolar world. So what they prefer is not being a part of the globalization, but being a sovereign empire with its own interests, of course, with the interest of spreading of these ideas. But at the same time, they have a respect to the other nations. So I know that in Europe, there is a critics toward China, especially in the anti-globalist circles, which underlines the fact that China can be a new pole of the globalism, and it is also a risk. I don't agree. I don't share this vision. I think that if we install the correct dialogue with China, then we can have a win-win partnership. So for this win-win strategy, I've got from my colleagues from the Shanghai University when we were discussing the strategy of China, and they said when the globalism of United States comes, it's a lose strategy for the others and win for only one. When China comes for the collaboration, this is the win-win strategy. It means that both participants of the dialogue must benefit. And I think that now with China, the Russians' relations are at the best point. And if you analyze the CGTN TV and you watch the reportages about the region, you can see absolutely that even with some critical points towards Russia, they still are on the multipolar world line, and they understand the role of the United States in this conflict. So they underlines this, and I was really pleased when I've seen in the CGTV reportage the a very brief analysis of the Ukrainian nationalism and of the elements which were linked to United States. So there were the Nazi US blocs, which were supported by the CIA, which were also in contact with Ukrainians nationalists. So I think China is our partner, and its behavior from the beginning, political behavior from the beginning of the special military operation, is totally anti-globalist. As we see, China has its own front. Taiwan is similar. The situation with Taiwan is very similar to the situation with Russia and Ukraine. As well, U.S. tried to destabilize the Taiwan in order to prevent the reconciliation of the Chinese territories. So I think that we can understand each other by having these two different, but at the same time very similar examples of the geopolitical confrontation with the West.
Okay, so the last question. Some politicians and others, they claim that this is the decisive battle of Russia against the West. And if Russia loses, it's over. If the West loses, it's over. Your prognosis, this Ukrainian war, conflict, special operation, when should it be over, and how should it end, and when? Just briefly.
I think that it must be finished with the victory of Russia and multipolarity. not only of Russia but multipolarity, that Ukraine must be denazified and demilitarized, because this is a zone which is risky ground for the world war. As we can see now, the West is trying to make more pressure on Ukraine, they are more engaged in the conflict. They are sending more arms. The Rusi Center of Great Britain had published the analysis which arms exactly must be given to Ukraine. So the situation is going closer to the third world war, but still watching the progress of Russian army, we can state that still the advantage is on the Russian side, and I hope that this will be the victory. And of course, this victory also will symbolize, and now it already symbolizes, the new world. The world will never go back to this globalism order. Even if there will be a compromise decision in the region, the multipolarity is already installed. India, China, liberated Africa, liberated from neo-imperialism, and now all the countries of Africa like Mali or Cote d'Ivoire or Guinea are now trying to gain its sovereignty back. Middle East, Turkey, even the countries of Europe are now trying to make themselves more sovereign. Like we have in Italy now the deep crisis in the government, and we see that all the representatives of power who are in good contact with Kiev loses their positions. So I think that the world will never go back to the globalism. This is multipolarity. Even if there will be a compromise decision on the Ukrainian battleground, we still will be already in new world order.
Great. Thank you very much, Darya.
Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much.
Увидимся.
Спасибо.
Отлично.
Спасибо. На связи.
На связи. Пока-пока.
Всего до свидания.
Всего хорошего. Всем привет.